So you might have heard about the big Patreon purge over the last few days. If you don't know what Patreon is, it's kind of like this site here. It's a crowdfunding platform where people can donate to their favorite content creators like artists, YouTubers, video makers, people that create stuff that people want, and kind of put it out for free. This is a way that they can get paid and can be supported. And they have all kinds of different perks and things. That's what the system is built for. Now, over the last few days, they've been purging all kinds of people, namely three main figures. Over the on, I believe it was Friday or Thursday, it was James Allsup, Sargon of Akkad, and Milo Yiannopoulos. Now, as for Milo and James Allsup, I haven't looked into their personal situation, so I can't see if they actually broke the terms of service or whether this was just politics. But when it comes to Sargon being banned, from what I can tell, it was done in bad faith. It was done in a way that doesn't necessarily really violate the terms of service, and they don't seem to be very genuine about it. They never notified him that he was removed. Someone else had to let him know, and it seems that from what we can see in the terms of service, there is a hate speech section, which is an automatic red flag. If you see terms of service including the words hate speech, that's worthy of concern. That they'll start purging for political opinions. Not that they'll say something like hate speech, but they use those exact words, hate speech. Now, they did end up purging him, it seems, for for something he said on someone else's channel, a live stream 10 months ago, where he was insulting Nazis or insulting far-right people, and apparently that's not allowed. Insulting far-right people doesn't seem to be allowed, and that's the reason they banned him. And as far as we can tell, that doesn't really violate the terms of service, because as the CEO, Jack Conte, said, when they talk about using hate speech on that, the terms of service is actually referring to using the platform itself, not using the platform for income and then posting on Twitter or insulting people on someone else's live stream. It seems to be specific to the platform itself and how you use it. So, for what we can tell, it's very arbitrary. It's not really well spelled out, and a bunch of people are jumping ship for that reason. So we have Subscribestar now. This is an alternative that a bunch of people have preferred. There are other things like Square, PayPal, and Stripe. They're all headquartered in Silicon Valley, or at least Stripe and Square are. PayPal has a history of banning people, so they're not exactly a good alternative to jump to. There are other sites like Ko-Fi, I believe it, or Coffee, maybe it's pronounced, which does have something regarding hate speech. So that's another red flag, not really much better. But then there are things like LiberaPay, which I seem to like, which seems to be pretty good, pretty dedicated to free speech. The only real downside to them is that they're not that big of a platform. They're very small, kind of unreliable. Who knows if they'll be around in the year? Who knows if their system will even stay up or if they'll bugs. It's too young. It's too young to really rely on. And then there's Subscribestar, which seems to have pretty much a mix of both. It seems to be pro-free speech, and it's an established business. It seems to have been around for quite a bit. It's got its roots in the ground. It seems to have various different companies that are related to it in a way. So they seem to be on rather good ground. And I'll jump to the bottom in here. It seems like Bank of America, they accept PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. They use Payoneer, Discord, which I don't know if that's a type of payment or how that works or how Discord fits into the rest of these. Verified by GoDaddy, powered by Stripe. That's another one. Again, PayPal again, Amazon Web Services. So they seem to be pretty well established as a business. So that's reassuring. They're not going to vanish tomorrow without saying something. And the reason this thing kind of stands out rather well compared to others is because here on the Why page, this is what they're advertising. This is what they want to tell people to get them to join. And here under the independent and flexible section, they say at the bottom, and no judgments or biases, no overreactions, which seems to be targeted directly towards the people that get banned from Patreon. No judgments, no biases. As long as you're not doing anything illegal, they're going to let you be. And that seems to be what they're targeting there. So that's a very good sign. They don't directly say anything like free speech. It would be nice if they said something like free speech, but I'm not looking for a very political organization. I'm just looking for one that's neutral, and I think that's what everyone's looking for. One that is at the very least neutral and doesn't factor politics into whether or not you're allowed to use their service. So they seem to be overall pretty great. And that's why people are jumping to them. I mean, I've seen Sargon has jumped to Subscribestar now. You can support him there. Just on the main page, Meet the Stars, you got Timcast, I know, E. Miles Chung, Dave Collin, 1791L, however you pronounce that. But these all, at least those people, as far as I know, they put out like political content. They put out controversial stuff. And they're jumping to this now. And it seems rather like that's a good thing. That I hope Subscribestar notices that. And if they weren't already dedicated to really not doing what Patreon and PayPal are doing, that they start doing now. Now, of course, the big thing to look for in these things are their terms of service, and Subscribestar terms of service are right here. We want to jump to prohibited uses here, and overall, it's not perfect. There are issues, but I'd say overall it's pretty good. For one, there's no mention of the word hate speech there, which is a good thing. There are some things that kind of like hate speech, but overall, they don't mention those exact words, which makes me think it's not that ideological. That if it really was ideological, they would put the words hate speech there, but they don't. But overall, it's not perfect, but it's pretty dang good. In addition to other prohibitions, as set forth, you are prohibited from using the site for unlawful purpose. So in other words, don't break the law. I think we can all get behind that. To basically participate in unlawful acts, same kind of thing. Violate any regulations, rules, law. So same thing about the law. Intellectual property, obviously. The one that's kind of concerning here is Section E, which again, is subjective enough that they could bend the rules if they wanted to. It says to harass, abuse, insult, harm, defame, slander, disparage, intimidate, or discriminate based on gender, sexual orientation, religion, ethnicity, race, age, national origin, or disability. Of course, harass, that thing's kind of pretty objective, although when it comes down to, like, is criticizing someone considered harassment? I mean, to certain people it is. Abuse, again, like do words count as abuse? Does criticism count as abuse? It does say insult, again, like lots of YouTubers insult people. What is it talking about? Defame, slander, we can get behind that. But overall, like, they're not great, but they're honestly some of the best ones out there, unless you're going to go to a site that's much smaller like LiberaPay. Of the established ones, this one seems pretty good. If you look at the others, again, you'll see hate speech. You'll see something along those lines. The other one, I should see if I can find it here. I believe it is number J, or letter J. Section J is the other one that's kind of like iffy, which honestly I think is more of an issue than Section E. They can ban you for any obscene or immoral purpose. Immoral, again, that's kind of subjective. Like, can they ban someone for being immoral? Well, again, it all depends on what they define as immoral. That is something to be worried about. But overall, I see nothing ideological in here. I see things that they're just kind of covering themselves from a legal perspective. Because, of course, one thing you want to do when you create a company, when you use a company, is you want to include something that's kind of this last section right here. We reserve the right to terminate your use of the service or any related website for violating any of the prohibited uses. You want something that kind of covers your ground pretty well, so you don't get stuck with getting sued because someone did something that you obviously believe is wrong, you don't want to support, but you didn't happen to include it in your terms of service, and now you're in trouble. So I kind of understand them kind of being as broad as possible to give them the biggest ability to terminate accounts. But again, I don't see anything ideological. I don't see anything that looks like they're looking for trouble. I don't see the words hate speech. I don't see any, again, ideological words in here. I see very general words. Harass, abuse, insult, harm, defame, slander. These are all things that, while could be subjective, are kind of subjective, and they could bend the rules however they want, overall, they're things we can all agree are pretty bad. Like, they're all things we can get behind. But I appreciate this. I think Subscribestar overall has a lot of promise, as long as they realize that people are jumping to them now and relying on them for something better than Patreon. If they provide a platform for free speech, or they don't even have to come out and say free speech. They don't have to state any ideological goal. But what they could do is just kind of like be neutral. Just let these people use their platform, and as long as they're not being violent, as long as they're not like causing any actual problems through again, anything that's objectively immoral in terms of like actual violence, as long as they're not doing that, I see no reason. for them to go off the board. I mean, every company wants to make money, and if they ally themselves here, and again, they don't have to strictly say like we stand up for free speech, but as long as they accept these people here, I think that's a very good sign. They could do better than Patreon, because Patreon has now been stained with that notice that like, hey, if you say anything controversial, they might ban you. They're gonna ban your source of income, which can be very terrifying. Especially if you're someone that's completely relying on that and that's your only source of income. That can be a scary thing. So if Subscribestar is dedicated to this, all they need is to ban one person that does something based on like political opinion, and they're going to be in trouble. But overall, I mean, looking at all these, again, it's not, they're not perfect. Obviously, I showed you the things I'm concerned with, but they are the best. They are the best out there in terms of like well-established platforms. And for that reason, if you're considering it, I recommend it. I think it's pretty great. If anyone, hopefully Subscribestar listens to us and does not go off the board. But let me know what you think in the comments section. If you've ever been banned by Subscribestar, if you've been screwed by them, let me know in the comment section. I want to know if there's anything wrong with them, because I have not heard anything as far as I know. Again, the fact that they say, like, my biggest positive sign I see with them is what they say on the main page. The fact that they're advertising this at the very beginning. Why use them? No big corporate murky policies, no silly macro management or overreactions, which I assume they put overreaction because, I mean, obviously they're choosing their words carefully. Why put overreactions in there? I'm assuming overreactions in the sense of something big comes up on the news, someone did something terrible, and automatically you have to disavow them. Kind of like that. And no judgments or biases whatsoever. I appreciate that. Like, no biases. Now, again, everyone likes to think they're not biased, so these are by no means concrete proof. But it's reassuring. And that's the best we've gotten from anything else. So I really do, again, like, I'm realizing that I've said a lot of, I've had a lot of criticisms of their terms of service, and I'm a bit concerned there. But this seems to be the best thing they got, and that thing there on the first page is really reassuring. So, but yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. If you've used this, say why it's great, or if you've used this and had some bad issues with it, let me know. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and thanks for watching.